I made a character my players love to hate, and here's how I did it. Hey there! So let me introduce myself. I am a games master, or a dungeon master, and a storyteller with numerous years of experience, and it's a hobby of mine to take on new and interesting tabletop RPG challenges. So today I'm going to be talking about an antagonist I made and how I made the players love to hate them. So for some backstory, I made a short mystery adventure for my friends set in the Beastars universe with some added supernatural elements. The general flow of the mystery was that the players were a group of traveling young adults and their car has just broken down. They drift into a small, aging town in Arizona and suddenly there's a murder. Naturally, being new to the town, the players are suspects, so they have to go and investigate and help prove their innocence so that they can catch the real killer. So right away, you might assume the antagonist I'm going to be talking about is this mysterious killer, but you'd be wrong. You see, when developing a good story, it's always good to have every actor have their own kind of goals and motivations and flaws. Antagonists can come from anywhere, really, and while it's good to have a central bad guy, lesser antagonists can also be a really important part of telling a player's story. These lesser antagonists can be planned, like the one I'm going to be discussing today, but they can also emerge dynamically. It's always a good thing to let the story breathe and evolve around the players, so you should never be afraid if best laid plans go awry. It might just be the best thing to happen to your adventure. So for my adventure, I was playing Tales from the Loop, which is a tabletop RPG system about kids on an adventure. Think E.T. and Stranger Things, and you'll probably get the vibe. The system works really well as an agnostic roleplay system. Aging up the player characters doesn't seem to make things too different, really. One of the principal themes of Tales from the Loop, however, is that the quote-unquote adults are always a bit oblivious to the bad things going on. In this instance, then, I decided to create a source of conflict from a source of authority to give the adventure a more rebellious young adult vibe. Enter Kyra Levine, our antagonist we'll be discussing today. I originally made Kyra a cool, flashy action hero version of a police officer. She rode a bike, she wore aviator sunglasses, and the plan was to have her show up the players a little. She evolved, however, when I realized what a terrible idea that was. Ultimately, the players should always be the heroes or the central characters of the story, so it felt kind of wrong to have the character try and steal their thunder a bit. She was originally a bit too competent when I made her. I originally wanted that to lead into overconfidence and then her eventual death to show that the players were in very real danger. But I already kind of had a good cop in the town. I'd already made the local sheriff kind of fill the good cop role, and it ultimately risked becoming a bit of a cheap gag rather than the true subversion of expectation that I wanted. So instead, I decided to make Kyra a bit more of an antagonist. I ruined her, boys. I'm sorry. Instead of making her the competent go-getter, I made her a bit of a loose cannon instead. Kyra Levine ended up burning out of her job and developing alcoholism. She couldn't really deal with the fact that her work never really seemed to make an impact, and her dreams of making the world a better place were ultimately shattered. It's important to understand that people are always the way they are for a reason, so I worked on her backstory a little more to help me really understand her. The eager young action hero was ultimately who she used to be, and while she's still good at her job and solves cases, it's more by luck now than by actual effort. I made her an FBI agent just to give her a bit more of a dangerous vibe and feeling that she could potentially get away with some of the worst of her antics. I still gave her the bike and shades though, simply because, well, that's cool. The real magic in making her a character you'd like to hate though is through her interactions. The first time the players interact with her is when they are woken up in the morning by a loud bike revving its engine outside their windows. This immediately establishes her presence in the story as one to provide annoyance. And equally, her arrival times with the first murder being reported by the police. We established two things here. Kyra Levine is inconsiderate, and her presence coincides with bad things happening, which is a deliberate bit of storycraft to make the players slightly wary of her. I initially set her up to be a disruptive force to the player's investigation. She will accuse them of murder without evidence and dare them to explain themselves. And if they stutter, she'll double down on the pressure as best she can to get their real story. You could defend this with the argument that she's just doing her job, albeit badly, but in reality, you can clearly see she's just being a bully when she does this, even when it's not necessary. Tales from the Loop has an inbuilt mechanic of the problem, which is unique to each character. These problems are something that the player character is trying to deal with, which is effectively a personal conflict they're trying to resolve alongside the mystery. It's part of the storyteller's role to challenge the players on their problem, so to that end, I made Kyra be the person who will call them out on their problems. Being an FBI agent, she's observant and insightful, so she'll read things about the characters and use that in her questioning. The final rule I had with her is that she'll always display her flaws for everyone to see. Kyra will outwardly drink on the job, and she will complain that her caseload doesn't matter. She thinks that the town is bad and that she ultimately doesn't care. And when the players call her out on that, she'll threaten them with her own authority. The players can't really do anything about it, which will frustrate them, and it will make them feel great when they can finally get back at her. She's unashamed in being a completely bad person, and that's exactly why my players love to hate her. There's an interesting phenomena which happens when someone has something that they're true to, even if that's a negative thing, and it ultimately makes people respect them. The same is true here. The reason why she's like the way she is also quite sympathetic. While a burnt-out cop isn't original by any means, it's something that people can empathize with. It helps that Kyra is also presented like a cool biker chick as well. Whenever I roleplay her, I always make sure to display that she has charisma. She's sassy, she's confident, and she's very sure of herself, even when she shouldn't be. So that is how I made a character my players loved to hate. Charisma, authority, directing things at the player characters, and simply being true to their terrible, terrible habits. Thank you for joining me, and if this helped you, please give this video a like. It helps a bunch. I'll be making more of these videos in the future, so make sure to stay tuned and subscribe. If you want me to look at or cover a specific topic in a video, I'd love to know about it, so consider please leaving a comment. Also, I stream on Twitch, link below if you want to talk to me live, and there's also a link in the description to my socials if you want to talk to me there. That's all from me. See you next time. Cheerio.